Now, on yesterday's programme, Foxy, right at the beginning of the programme, was talking about spending some time in a haunted house. Just remind us where this was?
It was in Cornwall. Very, very old house. Bits of it go back to the 11th century. And we were staying on a particular corridor of the house, and we were told that that corridor had a ghost on it.
Right.
And what really freaked me out was that the night before, one woman, one of the guests at this party, had been staying on that corridor on her own, and she'd woken up with a start at about 4:30 in the morning and felt a really cold presence, a chill down one side of her body, and she hadn't known it was supposed to be haunted, and we were in the next door room. The following night.
Just the window was open or something like that. Anyway, so we were just thinking about ghosts and haunted houses, whether there's any truth, whether it can be substantiated, all that kind of stuff. So here we have in the studio with us the real physical presence of Philip Hutchinson, author, haunted tour guide, and council member of the Ghost Club. Hello.
Good evening, Simon.
What happens in the Ghost Club then?
It's the name makes it out to be more fun than it is. It's the oldest paranormal organisation in the world, founded originally in the 1850s. Charles Dickens had been a member, Peter Cushing, famous luminaries from the past. Generally, the Ghost Club now exists to be a rather broad church for international members to get together to attend lectures on the paranormal and occasionally to do overnight investigations at ostensibly haunted locations.
Okay, so before we actually talk about haunted houses, in your opinion, what constitutes a ghost? And is there such a thing?
When people ask me this question, it's almost impossible to answer.
Well, you're in the Ghost Club, and
Yes,
you're a council member. You seem like a perfect person to ask.
Indeed. A ghost is generally an apparition or a physical presence, maybe by things materializing, things moving across rooms, unexplained noises that doesn't seem to have any physical form.
Right. So I'm none the wiser, really. So it could be there and it could not be there. Nail your colours to the mast. Is there such a thing?
I believe there is such a thing as ghosts, but I don't believe in the classic interpretation of them being spirits of the dead coming back to interact. I think ghosts have a scientific cause, which science is currently at a loss to explain.
So what about collective hallucinations? You know, when lots of people appear to see the same thing. What can that be explained by?
Indeed, there's very few examples of that. They do exist, and I have to concur that they're probably genuine. I think there is great depth to the mind. I do believe in the possibility of ESP, which is proven to exist in the animal world, and I think with us only understanding 10% of the human brain, there's an extreme possibility it may exist in humans as well, but we can't tap into how it works.
So a haunted house then, what's going on there? Because Rebecca was saying, you know, she stayed in this haunted house, well, it was supposed to be haunted. She has this story about the person next door, and there was a draft and a shiver and all that kind of stuff. So what's happening in a haunted house? I didn't wish to minimalise your story.
No,
there.
There were also strange noises from the room next door, even though there was nobody there at the time.
Right, okay.
So haunted houses, how common are they?
They're very common. There's as many ghosts in places as there are people to speak about them. I'm meeting people all the time say, I don't believe in ghosts. Oh, but in the house I used to live in, X, Y, or Z used to happen. They're far more prevalent than you'd think, but it may just be one experience in about 100 years.
Okay, let me just try this on you. Nigel Slater, the fantastic food writer, okay, I was speaking to him recently about his new book. In his book, he says, he's talking about his house, used to be a hospice run by nuns, and then he says, most of whom have left, but one of them hasn't. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I see a nun on the stairs. And he said, Simon, I don't believe in anything, but I have a nun on the stairs. So what's going on there, member of the Ghost Club, who doesn't believe in ghosts?
These are theories, and everything with ghosts has to be theoretical, because we have no actual physical, tangible proof that they exist. Everything has to be a matter of faith.
Well, either he's making it up, or he's seen a nun on the stairs.
I don't believe he's making it up. I think there are very few cases of people creating these stories for their own ends.
Can I just ask you, if you talk about sort of a ghost being on a corridor, which is what we were told, why would they stay on that corridor and not go wandering around the house?
That could be. There's a theory which is called stone tape theory. It's one a lot of people involved in paranormal research keep going back to. It was actually a BBC drama in 1972, and the idea was that certain events, certainly where there's a strong release of energy, such as tragic events, they leave an imprint in the fabric of the building. Rather like in the days of video, you'd actually record something on magnetic tape, and given conditions, magnetically they'd play back. That's the idea between stone tape. So actually, what you're seeing is a replayed image which is stored in the fabric of a building. building. It's fairly far-fetched, but it's one explanation a lot of people try to go with. And
have you ever been scared? I mean, you seem like a fairly
yes.
sceptical kind of guy, but have you ever been a bit freaked out?
Very much so. When I go on investigations, if you're in a room with a load of other people, nothing will scare you. You're in a room with a load of people, you're sitting there going, bring it on, and there's no fear. But if you're in a dark room by yourself, I don't want to be in there for any period of time at all. I've been on some investigations where I've been extremely scared. Not because of what's happened, because of the general human fear of what may happen to you. You're in an old castle in the dark by yourself in the middle of the night. There's no one around for 100 yards. You don't want someone to jump out of the wall clanking chains at you.
Well, if you sleep in a castle or an old hotel, you might imagine that, but what about if you're in a new flat? Or a new Barrett home or something like that? You're not expecting those to be haunted.
No, you wouldn't, but it does happen. You tend to get poltergeist activity at modern houses, and poltergeists aren't related to buildings, they're related to
What's
individuals.
the difference between a poltergeist and a ghost?
A poltergeist, the literal translation from the German is noisy spirits. They're meant to be people-centric, and if generally with teenagers, especially if they're going through a time of stress in adolescence, they can cause psychokinesis. Things can move around, things can fly off walls and upturn themselves. Of course, very often it's actually the teenager doing it themselves for attention. But there have been cases such as the famous Enfield poltergeist of the 1970s, and so a poltergeist is thought to be centered around an individual, and it's things moving around, voices, things flying about, rather than actual apparitions of ghosts.
And finally, is there a place, you know, that's the centre of haunting in the UK, if indeed there is such a thing? I mean, is there a city or a town where most of this stuff happens?
Well, York and the Isle of Wight are both extremely haunted places. The island says it's the most haunted island in the world. If I'm going for individual locations, it may be obvious, but the Tower of London is extremely haunted, and one that's cropping up a great deal these days is Mitchell Priory in East Sussex.
Philip, appreciate you coming in, because I don't think we've sorted anything out. I mean, are you a sceptic, Foxy? Do you think? I mean, what?
I'm totally convinced they exist.
You
yeah.
absolutely believe so? You know,
Yes.
that noise next door, that was... What was that then?
It's definitely a ghost.
It's definitely a ghost. Philip Hutchinson from the Ghost Club, thank you very much indeed for explaining a few things for us. Thank you, Philip.